Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for May 9th, 2023. I want to begin today with an assessment from the founder of the Schiller Institute, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, which I believe to be an accurate characterization of what we're facing. So here's what she said about the current situation. Quote, "Anybody who is not completely historically ignorant and politically blind should see what we face, namely that it is the repetition of the Great Depression, the danger of a financial blowout of the system, which the oligarchy is reacting to with Schachtian economics, Schachtian referring to Hitler's Minister of Finance, going for a militarization of the economy in Europe, giving free rein to the military-industrial complex in Great Britain and the United States, and actually driving the world to the edge of World War III and possibly beyond. All of that is based on a fascist ideology, which is not new. It's Carl Schmitt, it's Leo Strauss, it's Nietzsche. It's the beast man image of the oligarchy since their conception many empires ago. But it adds the skills and the potentials today of the advances in technology, including algorithms, including AI fake intelligence, complete manipulation of the population," unquote. This is the danger we face. You think this is an exaggeration? Let's look at some of the recent events. First, drones fired at the Kremlin, an assassination attempt against Putin. How crazy is that? Especially in the situation we face now. Secondly, the drones fired at the Kremlin were then reported to be a threat that there might be an attack on the May 9th Victory Day parade in Moscow. Now, the parade is a commemoration of what victory? The victory over fascism. Nazi Germany was defeated on May 9th, 1945. This is a victory which cost more than 27 million lives of people living in the Soviet Union. At that time, the Soviet Union was an ally of the United States in the war against Nazi Germany. My father was in Europe with the US Army, and his efforts, along with millions of others, should be celebrated and commemorated today. That is, that by everyone except those in Ukraine who are tied to the neo-Nazi regiments that don't wish to see a celebration of a victory over Hitler. So think about that. Now, we saw recently an assassination attempt against Russian novelist Zakhar Prilepin. Now, on the heels of that assassination attempt, the Ukrainian news agency Unian, UNIAN, asked its readers who should be the next Russian target who should be killed. I'm not kidding, they took an online poll, who should be killed. This was reported by the Gray Zone's Alexander Rubinstein. Now, Unian is part of the Ukrainian media group owned by oligarch and Zelensky supporter Kolomoisky. Its clients include BBC, Reuters, Associated Press, Der Spiegel, and the Voice of America. Now, does that mean that the US and NATO endorse the terrorist threats against opponents? People who are called Putin puppets or information terrorists? Is NATO supporting these kinds of threats? Now, at the same time, what are we facing? We have what's called a banking crisis in the United States and Western Europe. It's not really a banking crisis. It's a crisis affecting the banking sector because of a profound economic crisis that was brought on by a failure to reverse the policies of the last 50 years, which increasingly have generated credit into speculation and not into physical economic production. So in reality, it's a full-blown economic crisis. Now, just as an example of this, there was an article in the Daily Telegraph by a Stanford University banking expert named Professor Amit Seru. And here's what he wrote. He said, it's not just Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic. Much of the US banking system is potentially insolvent. And he writes that out of 4,800 American banks, 2,315 have assets far below their liabilities. In other words, they're technically insolvent. The market value is $2 trillion less than the book value, which means that if the assets had to be sold off because of a run on a margin call where you have to come up with cash, they wouldn't have enough money. They couldn't sell them for enough to cover their liabilities. That's technically bankrupt. Now, is that going to improve anytime soon? Well, Jerome Powell is saying we have to keep the interest rates high. The Central Bank of the European Union is keeping interest rates high. And Powell is talking about more interest rates to come. And at the same time, we have the debt ceiling problem in the United States, which means the United States will soon run out of cash to pay for its costs. This is furthered by what's going on as the deindustrialization, which is somewhat related to energy problems caused by green policy and the war, but more importantly, a 50-year drift away from industrial investment and physical economic production. Take the case of Germany. Between March and April of this year, business investment is down 10.7%. That's a huge drop. And that means there's a credit crunch. The auto industry is down 6.5%. Machine building industry, 3.4%. This is in Germany. And construction is down 4.6%. And as there's a housing shortage in Germany, but new mortgages have collapsed. And part of the reason for this is that prices are up with inflation, but home values have collapsed, which means that people who had thought they could use their home if necessary to get emergency cash can't do so. So we're looking at a situation with a full-scale breakdown of physical economy, which is reflected by the crisis in the banking sector. And what are the politicians doing about it? The European Union is a joke. Non-elected European Commission bureaucrats going along with City of London and Wall Street bankers. The US Congress, worse than a joke. Not a single discussion of how to get the full economy back on its feet. Instead, they're either talking about austerity or spending on green technology, which is a waste of money because it produces nothing. In fact, it undermines the physical economy. Now, where is this not happening? In Asia, with China as the leader of a move toward what used to be considered the American system. Credit going into physical economic production. And as a result, we see Russia and China at the center of a move toward de-dollarization, not because they're against America, but because they're against the banking policy which would establish central bank dictatorships, taking away the power of sovereign governments to regulate their own economies. And so the BRICS are growing, the alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They're growing. The latest to say they wish to join is Algeria. Now, that's why for the US and NATO, there's a war against Russia which must continue. It's not just to get more money for the military-industrial complex, it's to defeat Russia, to make sure that Russia is incapable of using its economic power to back up other sovereign nations that wish to fight against the Anglo-American economic collapse. And to fully understand this, you should look at the 50-year forecasting record of Lyndon LaRouche and his 4 laws which would put the economy back on its feet, starting with Glass-Steagall banking regulation. Now, to help you understand this, I'll be posting on the bottom of the description page a link to an extremely important article from LaRouche written in July 2000 called On a Basket of Hard Commodities, Trade Without Currency. I'll also be having a discussion tomorrow with Helga Zepp-LaRouche on this crisis to give you more details and more in-depth picture of what we face and what must be done to get out of this crisis. The most important thing that must be done is for you to think about this, to use your critical faculties to come to understand that this is a civilizational crisis which requires people not to shrug and moan and complain, but to get off their butts and go out and organize with us. So thanks for joining me today. I'll be back again tomorrow. Hello, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Support our independence to produce videos like these. Become a member of the LaRouche organization at thelarouche.org/member. By becoming a member for $25 or more, you'll get special access to the EIR Alert Daily Briefing and Weekly Magazine, which is what I read to stay on top of things.